I have been sharing with people some details this morning. We've been weaving it in and out of the show, but as we sit here this morning, I really find incredibly impressive is that every few minutes there is an update that is coming across Drudge, and this picture of what's going on looks worse and worse and worse. This picture of what's going on in the threat we have from terrorists, and call it breaking news. I mean, I haven't seen news break like this in the last few days when we've got people who've been arrested crossing the southern border already, and now we've got people who've been arrested who apparently are they're on their way. And I don't understand, as I said earlier, the denial that people are in that this could become a really serious problem. And it may not happen here, but if you've got a cousin who lives, I don't know, in Phoenix or Albuquerque or Dallas, don't you feel for them? We have a caller with us. Number to reach our program, 736-0300, 736-0300. Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And you're up next. You're on the air. All right, we'll try line two. Obviously, someone wants to chat with us. You're on the air.
Yeah, Bill, I was just wondering if you know if anybody's looking into the Islamic Center there on Addison. It just seems weird to me when they meet, they block up both streets. And I just can't imagine them letting a church build that size there and not have adequate parking.
And I was told by some of the people who were looking into this, there were some people who were trying to get details on this. They said that when it came to permitting this thing, that, and I don't have a problem with somebody setting up a worship center. But some of the people I've talked to have a belief that perhaps certain corners were cut and certain people in the city of Twin Falls allowed those corners to be cut. Just to say, well, hey, look, we're great people. We welcome you. And so therefore you can build this extremely large building on this tiny little lot. Do you get that impression that because of political correctness?
That was kind of my feeling. And it seems like our local politicians and whatnot just want to wash their hands of the refugee problem and say it's not their issue. But, I've dealt with planning and zoning before, and it just surprises me that they're letting them do that there.
I think when the governor came out and said, I mean, he had said it a month ago, but when he came out and made it official in that news release the other day, I was shocked by how many people suddenly got religion. That is to say, I'm using that as a metaphor, but got religion and said, this isn't really a good idea. Who'd been telling us for so long it was a good idea. Once the governor said it, it's okay to be opposed. But before that, they couldn't be?
Yeah, they could. Yeah. Yep.
Hey,
I appreciate you getting the word out there.
Hey, thank you much for the telephone call. People have been asking why especially in media, why Donald Trump is getting such traction among the American people. Because we feel that most politicians, I guess even on the local, state, and national level, don't level with us anymore. Well, here's Mr. Trump yesterday. Now, I admit I have edited this because there's a long gap in here. We don't like a lot of dead air on the radio. He was at a rally in Connecticut, I believe it was, and people were still trying to get in the door. This arena was sold out, and people were outside and couldn't get in, and he's talking about that. And he got interrupted by a heckler. Take a listen for a moment.
50 million people on food stamps. And I'll tell you what, if we had a real, hello.
Now, what's happening is a guy who needed a haircut badly is getting escorted out because he was heckling the Donald.
It's amazing. I mentioned food stamps, and that guy who's seriously overweight went crazy. He went crazy. Amazing.
Now, how many? Can you imagine Jeb Bush saying that? Hillary Clinton wouldn't say it. Bernie Sanders wouldn't say it. Jeb wouldn't say it. Marco Rubio wouldn't say it. You wouldn't hear it from John Kasich. And yet there's Donald Trump saying, and again, he's just said what everybody else is thinking. And and people eat it up. When I was a boy, and Nelson Rockefeller was my governor, and I'm not celebrating that in any way, but he was my governor for a very, very long time. He was at some meeting with these poor folks in some neighborhood one time, and some very large woman got up and said, we don't have, we need more grocery stores and better nutrition for our children. And Rocky looked at her and says, you don't look like you've missed many meals. And at the time, the media, of course, still and even then was already becoming more and more liberal. And they were horrified. And Rockefeller was no conservative, but it probably bought him another 4 years at the next election to say something like that, because people could look at this woman and that's the exact same thing that they would have said. Or at least they were thinking it when they were. There's a Woody Allen movie called Hannah and Her Sisters. Woody is out for a walk along I guess it's the Hudson River. Might have been the East River. He's out for, I don't know the geography that well in New York. I've driven by a couple of those rivers, but I couldn't tell you much about where movies are shot. But he's walking along, and you can hear him thinking. He's not talking. He's walking, and he's deep in thought. But you can hear his thoughts as part of the movie. And all of a sudden, a really large woman comes jogging by him, and he thinks a nasty thought about the size of her, and then he just keeps walking and goes back to his other thought. And yeah, people think like that. And there, Donald Trump just put it into words, and people actually got a big laugh out of it. That's how you deal with a heckler, though. And, well, what was it, Martin O'Malley, when he said all lives matter and he got booed and heckled, he said, "I'm sorry, Black Lives Matter and mine is insignificant. Please don't come up on stage and frighten me anymore." Happened to him on the streets of Baltimore all the time. He can't take it any longer. 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com and 39. Do want to mention Mike Gallagher is coming up in just a few seconds. Mike Gallagher is brought to you exclusively by the financial advisors at Waddell & Reed in Twin Falls. You can reach them at this number, 736-6563. That's 736-6563. And then we'll have some closing thoughts in just a few minutes. Sad thing is, I think we're going to see a situation like France. And then I think a lot of the liberals will finally themselves get that religion that the local politicians have gotten.